Hi, I'm Aaron Marcus, and I am so excited about sharing this information with you today. And this video, it's all about secrets to getting work in small markets. So let me get started, and I want to uh, start by sharing my contact information with you in case you have any follow-up questions. You can always reach me there. Here are all the topics that we're going to be discussing, but instead of going through each one, let me just get started, and that way I can start answering these questions for you as soon as possible. So the very first thing that I want to share with you is I want to make sure that you know, look, it is true that most of the guest starring roles for TV and films, they are going to come out of major markets. They're going to happen in either New York, LA, could be Chicago, could be Atlanta. But I would say New York and LA is still they're probably the number one and two cities for stars getting cast in major projects. However, let me also just let you know that just because you live in a small market doesn't mean that there's not a lot of work available for you. I lived in a very small market and worked there probably for about 4 years before I felt like I was ready to move to a larger market. But I got a lot of work. And I can tell you, I've booked a handful of national television commercials in small markets. So don't think that just because you're living in a small market, there is no work available for you. And also get rid of this misconception that just because someone is working in a small market, they're not that talented. Look, there's nothing in the drinking water in LA or New York that makes people more talented. Most of the really talented people in New York and LA are people who came from small markets. So certainly there are more opportunities there, but you're really going to be surprised as to how much work actually is available to you, even in small markets. Let me show you how. So, very first thing you need to know is who hires actors and models. So, the three major players, it's going to be photographers, it's going to be casting directors, and sometimes they don't necessarily hire people directly, but sometimes they can be very influential. Sometimes they really can help get somebody cast. And also art and creative directors. And I'm going to share a lot more information about them with you in a little bit. So for photographers, look, you need to find out how do you go about finding really good photographers in your area. So here are some great websites for you that you can check out. American Photographic Artists, Gallery Stock, Shutterfest. It's a big festival and they have tons of photographers. American Society of Media Photographers, ASMP. And you can even go to a meetup group. And if you're not familiar with Meetup, these are free gatherings of people, all different kinds of topics. And what you just do is go to the meetup.com in your area, see if they have any meetup groups for photographers. If not, hey, maybe you can start one. Maybe you can bring in some photographers and people just meet locally and people get together and you can do this for all kinds of different topics. Before I start telling you about casting directors, the other thing too with photographers, look, even if you don't know that much about photography from a technical point of view, still what you can do is before you consider shooting with any photographer, visit their website and look at their work. And there are things that you can look at that will tell you whether the shots are good. Are they in focus? Do people look interesting? Are things blurred out? Are there shadows all over the place? Are there things distracting people from looking at the talent? But before you even consider working with any photographer, and let's say even if you're just trying to set up a headshot session, just make sure you're comfortable with the photographer. But sometimes photographers are the ones who make final decisions for commercial modeling jobs. So photographers are definitely people you want to contact. So casting directors. Here's the short explanation for what casting directors do. First of all, we, actors and models, we do not pay casting directors. They get paid either by the ad agency, they might get paid by production, but actors and models do not pay casting directors. And what they do is they get information about projects, they send that information out, it's called the breakdowns, and managers, agents, they all look at the breakdowns, and if they think that there's something right for one of their clients, then they will submit your headshot for that. So what's really helpful is find out who are some of the casting directors in your area. Make sure you send them a headshot, resume, cover letter, and I'm going to be talking about cover letters in a little bit as well. And see if you can get them to remember you. And hopefully at some point they'll bring you in to read. And that is a great way to find out about work on a local level. So how do you find casting directors? Well, and once again, for everything in today's time, you can always do Google searches, but there is an affiliation. It's the Casting Society of America, and you can check them out. I can tell you a lot of those casting directors are going to be based in New York and LA, but you will find some that are based in smaller markets. There's also a publication that you can purchase. It's called The Call Sheet, and it is produced by Backstage. You can just go to this link. And I believe they are produced once every 2 months, I think. Honestly, I don't think you have to buy a subscription. I think you can just buy one of them, and it will tell you about all the casting directors, certainly in LA and New York. It's going to tell you who or what projects they're casting and things like that. You can also find tons of agents that way, also mostly LA and New York, but sometimes you will find some people in other markets as well. And look, ask local agents, which casting directors do they typically go through? And you can also ask the art and creative directors. And we're going to be talking about art and creative directors in just a minute. So, as I promised, art and creative directors. Look, these are the people who work at advertising agencies. The reason why I think it's so important to make contact with them, sometimes they are the ones who make final decisions for the model, for the commercial modeling job, for the actor, for the TV commercial, for the actor, for the voiceover radio spot. And sometimes it's a joint version of where, they will have meetings with the client, they'll have meetings with the photographer. And so, of course, they're not always making final decisions, but they are influencers. So there are a number of ways of finding them. And one way you can go to this association, you can go to AAAA.org, American Association of Advertising Agencies. Here's another website for a bunch of ad agencies. And let me just walk you through this process of showing you, once you find an ad agency, what you want to do. So let me just head on over to this ad agency right here. So I picked one at random. So let's say you found an ad agency on your own. So now you're thinking, okay, so what do I do from here? You want to find the art and the creative director because you want to send them information. So what I would do is I'm looking at this menu. Let's see what they have in the menu. I'm going to open this up about the agency. So let's take a look at that one. And then once that opens up, I'm trying to find the names of the people who work there. And then all of a sudden I come down here and boom, here's the Senior Interactive Art Director. This could be a really good person to contact. Sometimes their email address will be right there. You can send something to them there. For this one, there's LinkedIn, a LinkedIn contact, and also a Twitter contact. Follow them. Send them notes. And this is a fantastic way of getting in touch with the people that you need to get in touch with. Okay, so let's move on from from art and creative directors. And what should you actually be sending to these people? So let's talk about agents for 1 second. Now, once you find some agents, And by the way, if you go to my website, howtoactandmodel.com, at least for right now, and it might change at some point, I do have a free listing of over 400 agents. You'll find agents from every state in the United States. So once you find an agent, then what do you do? Certainly you want to follow their directions. So once again, let's go take a peek and let's find an agent. And here's a really good agency in New York. Now, this is a commercial modeling agency. They have an office in New York and in LA. And as you can see, it's more high-end commercial work. These are typically not fashion models, but these are, beautiful women, really handsome guys. So one of the things that I would be looking at for any agent's website is something that might say, become a model, become a Bella model. And then they will just walk you through the process of exactly what they want. And they're going to ask you to, submit photos. Typically, that's what's going to happen. And so that is a great way to find, once you found the agent, how to get in touch with them, and always follow their instructions. You don't want to not listen to them. Now, what I would also suggest, in addition, if they are asking you to submit photos or a photo online and upload it to their website, I would also highly recommend that you send a copy through the mail. Send an actual headshot or maybe a composite sheet or both, once again, along with a cover letter. And the reason why I say that is because, sometimes you just don't know who's going to see the photo that you sent. Maybe it's just an intern. They really don't know what they're doing. They're kind of weeding things out. Or who knows, maybe one day they're not interested in you, and then a few days later, they are interested. So certainly follow their directions, follow their requests, but I also really recommend that you send a hard copy in as well. So with a cover letter, and actually I've got this in my book, How to Become a Successful Actor and Model. I've got a whole page just for this, but this gives you a pretty good idea of, pretty generic idea for a cover letter of just letting them know that you're a fresh face in this market, and you can let them know what you're interested in doing. You can spell it out for them, whether it's TV commercials, feature films, television shows, radio shows, whatever you're interested in doing, radio spots. And that's just a great way to do it. Now, in your cover letter, make sure that you have your photo on the top of the letter. So that way, as they're reading your letter, they can see you. Make sure your contact information is there as well. And so that way, just in case your headshot, your comp card gets separated, they can still see what you look like, and they will see your cover letter. Now, one of the problems that people are always asking me about is they'll say, well, I sent something in, haven't heard from them. How long should I wait? Is it okay to call them back? So what I would do is this. I would definitely follow up. I wouldn't necessarily call because not everybody wants phone calls. And you have to understand, like if every person who submitted to an agent called them the next day or in a couple of days, the agents would be spending all of their time just answering phone calls. And they really don't want to deal with that. So what you can do, and you'll read about this in my book as well, you can create just a little form just like this. You can print it out. You don't have to spend, a bunch of money on it. Just print it out from your home or go to, any local printer. And basically, you can ask them to check off the right box. I viewed your materials. We want you to contact us. Saw your materials. We're not interested at this time. They can check that off. And then you can also follow up with, if you're not interested in this time, can you give me any suggestion as to why? Or are there any agents in the area who you think that I would be a better fit with? And then what you're going to do is place it in a pre-stamped addressed envelope. So it will have your name, where it's being sent to. The agent's name is in the upper left-hand corner. Put a stamp on it. And that way they can check this off, drop it in the mail. It will take them a second, and you'll know whether they got it. You'll know if they have any information for you. And who knows, they might send you something back and say, hey, look, I think you've got a good look. You're not right for our agency, but here's the name of an agency in the area. Okay, so how to find agents. So along with my list, and here's the list that I was talking about that I currently have on my website. You can also go to the union website, SAG-AFTRA, and you can find a list. They're called franchised agents. These are agents who've signed contracts. They've agreed to abide by union rules, and you can get that list free, even if you're not a union member. Now, it's a limited amount. Certainly, if it's an agency that strictly deals with commercial modeling, they're not going to be a part of it because there's no connection between unions and commercial modeling. But at least this would be a start for some really great agents in your area. Here's some other links that you can use, everything from Backstage if you're looking for agents in the UK, and then here's just a few others. Listservs. These are also really helpful ways of getting information about local jobs and auditions in your area. So I'm just listing a few of them here. Depending on the state that you live in, I'm sure you can do some Google searches and you'll find some listservs. Many of these, they're completely free, and you just get on their mailing list. And I know for some of these, every day you're going to get emails about auditions, about jobs. Maybe it's about classes. But anyhow, it's a great way to get information about things that are going on in your area. And let me just share one of them with you right here. It's called Dragonuk Connects. And they also have a website, and you can pay a fee to be on their website. You can also sign up to be on their listserv at no cost, but it's phenomenal. And every day you'll get multiple listings of, once again, things that are going on in your particular area. Here are a bunch of others. This is for Pennsylvania. There are a lot of them in Texas. And anyhow, it's a great way to do it. So even if you have an agent, I still highly recommend that you try to market yourself. Now, depending on the contract that you have with your agent, you might have an exclusive contract with your agent that clearly states any job that you get, it has to go through the agent and you have to pay your agent a fee. And that's fine. You might have a contract, an exclusive contract that's only for your state. And maybe you're trying to get some work in states close by, and that would not be breaking the contract if you did it on your own. Let me just tell you that even if you have to send it through your agent, or let me put it another way. Let's say you don't have to send any job through an agent. I still recommend that you do that. And I know that sometimes people will say, well, why would I want to give up, in most cases, a 20% commission fee if it's a modeling job or a non-union job? For acting jobs, as of this moment, and it might change by the time you're watching this, union actors, we are only allowed to pay our agent a 10% commission fee. And that's for acting jobs. Once again, for commercial modeling jobs, there's no union jurisdiction. And so typically we'll pay 20%. But the question that people have is, why would I want to give up a 20% commission fee to an agent if I did all the work? I found the agent, I got on the listserv, I went to the audition, I booked the job. Why should I give up a 20% commission fee and send it through your agent? I'll tell you why. There are a number of really strong points as to why it's in your best interest to send jobs through an agent. And I can also tell you, there is no better way to introduce yourself to an agent than if you book a job, contact the agent and say, look, I'd like to talk with you about representation. First of all, I just booked a job and I wanted to see if you would handle it for me. That is the best. But let me tell you why it's in your best interest. And personally, I think it's just a smart business move to send your jobs through an agent. Look, let's just say it's a commercial modeling job, and every market models get paid a different fee. Sometimes it's an hourly fee, sometimes you get a half day, sometimes a full day rate. And so let me just make up a number because once again I have no idea where you live. Let's say you should be getting $100 an hour. And let's say you should be getting $100 an hour, although you might not if you're just getting started. So you're getting $100 an hour. You just booked this job through completely on your own through a listserv, and the photographer says to you, "Well, I'll tell you what. This is going to be a 4-hour booking, so you'll get your $400. Wanted to find out. We're going to be running this ad on billboards throughout the state. What is your fee for billboard usage?" And you're not going to have a clue. And why would you? So, you might be thinking, well, I really have no idea. Now, they might come back to you and say, well, look, if you're not sure, I tell you what we can do. We're going to pay you an extra $250 for the billboard usage. And just so you know, typically, whenever you are in what's called a high exposure format, high exposure formats are billboards, posters, ads on the side of a bus, on the internet, on a package, in a cutout. The reason why you typically get a bonus on top of your whatever your modeling fee is because you could potentially lose money being in a high exposure format. Now, you want to be in a high exposure format. It is cool. When I'm driving down the street and I see myself on a billboard, look, it's pretty cool, So the ways that you could lose money is number one, if you are up on a billboard, let's say for a local bank. Well, no other bank in your area is going to hire you because you are so closely associated with a competitor in a large way. You're up on billboards. So that's one way you could lose money. You could also lose money by getting overexposed. So there could be another ad for a local restaurant, and the art director, creative director, the photographer, they might say, I think this person would be perfect, but you know what? I've seen them all over the place for that bank billboard. So let's get a fresh face. And you know what? Something I just thought of. I didn't explain to you very specifically what the art and creative directors do. So let me do that right this second, and then I'm going to get back and finish as to why you should send it through your agent. So the creative director at an advertising agency is the person who comes up with the concept for the ad campaign. The art director takes that idea and puts it on paper and will create what's called a layout. That layout is a description showing what this ad will look like. Sometimes they will put the actual headlines on the top. Sometimes they'll put the copy, the words in the ad on the paper. Sometimes they will just take a stock photo, like a generic photo, place it on the paper. So that way the client, whoever this ad is for, can get a general idea of what the ad looks like, and the photographer can get a general idea of what needs to be done in the shot. So that's what they do. So if you send this job through an agent, instead of trying to save the 20%, instead of getting $250 an hour, you might get $1,000. I'm sorry, not an hour, but you might get for the bonus, but you might get $1,000 for the high exposure format. And so sometimes you can actually make more money by giving up a percentage and sending it to an agent. But you know what? Even if you don't, even if you're giving up 20%, you do not get any additional money. Let me tell you why it's still a good investment. Because agents want to make money. You could be the nicest person in the world. If you're never booking anything, then the agent is going to eventually stop sending you out on projects because the agent needs to work with people who book jobs. So if they see that you are making them money, that you are marketable, you even booked a job on your own, well, that's going to put you higher up on their list. So when another project comes up and they think that you're right for it, well, of course they're going to send you out. I mean, why wouldn't they? You've already booked a job. So anyhow, I would highly recommend that you send any job that you get through an agent. Okay, so here are a bunch of websites that you can use. to also try to get work on your own. Places like Actors Access, Backstage, 800 Casting, Casting Networks, there's Mandy, the Facebook.com. That's mostly New York. You can also get and I have this as the very last one. This is a listing of film commissions throughout the country. And what's really cool is that sometimes on the Film Commission website, they might talk about a project that's coming to town. And once again, you might be surprised. There's some big projects that might be coming to smaller markets. For many years, the HBO show Veep was shot in Baltimore, Maryland. And I mean, eventually they did move it out to LA, but that was after a number of years. There have been lots of projects that have happened in this market, in the Baltimore market. Everything from The Wire, Homicide: Life on the Street, House of Cards. I mean, and there are lots of movies that come through the area. So anyhow, that's why the Film Commission office might be really cool. Now, just to let you know, for some of these companies, some of these websites, you do have to pay a fee. Some of them you don't have to. And I'll run through a couple of them with you very quickly. It's like, for instance, for Actors Access. What you will find is, and once again, things are always changing as of today, and that's the only way I can talk. As of today, this is how it works. You can actually have a free account. With that free account, it does limit what you can show on the account, but you can have a headshot, you can have a resume, and then what will happen is you fill out a profile, and in your profile, you will check off what areas do you want to hear about auditions and jobs. So if you're living in, let's say, Virginia, then you probably want to find out about jobs in Virginia, in Maryland, in DC. Maybe if you're venturous, maybe Pennsylvania, maybe North Carolina, South Carolina, but that's completely up to you. Then what will happen is if there's a project that's sent to you and it seems right for you and you want to submit your headshot to it, then you will pay a fee. And it's a nominal fee. I think for Actors Access, it's about $1.99, if I'm not mistaken, every time you submit yourself for a possible audition or a job. So there is another workaround with that. You can pay an annual fee. And once again, as of today, it's a little under $70. And then you can submit yourself an unlimited amount of times. So my suggestion is, why don't you start off with the free account and see how many times you're actually submitting yourself. If you're only submitting once a month and you're paying, $2 a month, or twice a month and you're paying $4 a month, well, then it might be worth it to keep your free account. If you find that you're doing it 4 or 5 times a month, then it makes more sense that, to pay the annual fee. For a company like 800 Casting, which also is a good company, it's smaller than Actors Access. Most of their work is the Southeast in the United States, although they do have a presence in Europe. I believe they have a presence in Asia as well. And for that one, if I'm not mistaken, it's a little under $50 for the year, but it's unlimited submissions. You can have free videos up there and things like that. So you can just check out these different places, see which ones make the most sense for you. Something that you might not have thought about, there's some really interesting alternative jobs that aren't necessarily just straight acting and modeling, but they will have you use your acting and modeling skills that might be really, really good for you that you can find locally. So like, for instance, there's promotional work or event trade show work, and that can run the gamut from anything from, handing out keychains and things like that to actually being a spokesperson for the company. And the fees will vary greatly. It could be a small hourly fee, or you could be making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars a day, depending on the project. So here are just a couple of national agencies who hire promotional models and people to work at event trade shows. If you are an athlete, you don't have to be a professional athlete, but you're a really good athlete, there's a company here. It's called Game Changing Films, and they're wonderful. And they have done the casting for athletes, for TV commercials, for feature films, for television shows. And just check out their website. Find out how they want you to submit, for them. They do have open calls. And so if they need football players, they'll have you come out. They'll run you through drills. And anyhow, it's a really cool organization. There's something called standardized patient work. There's also something called law actors, as well as other kinds of similar types of work. So let me just tell you really quickly. With standardized patients, this is really cool. I know people who do this on a full-time basis, and many medical schools, as well as teaching hospitals, quite often they will hire actors to work as standardized patients. There's also something called role-playing jobs, and that kind of falls into the category along with law actors, but I'll tell you about that as well. So for standardized patients, what they're doing is they're trying to teach, might be a resident, might be a medical student, how to do a better job with doing evaluations. And so they will give you a background for what disease you have. And look, it's nothing super invasive or anything like that, but they'll tell you, you've got, I don't know, shoulder issues, and they'll tell you, or whatever disease it is. You don't have to memorize pages and pages and pages of script. You have to be incredibly familiar with the disease, and they'll give you the information. You're going to create a backstory. You're going to know exactly what's been going on with you, how long, how you hurt yourself, what are your symptoms, what are your restrictions. And it's an amazing job. And what will happen is at the end of the job, you are the one who will rate the doctor. You're the one who will write up a report, stating the person was very attentive. They asked great questions. They did wonderful follow-up. The med school student didn't seem all that interested, didn't seem to have a clue as to what to ask. Basically, it's up to you to write up that report and talk about whether you thought the person did a good job or not. Anyhow, so in this link, you'll find these programs literally around the world. For role playing, it could be any kind of job working for the FBI, could be the CIA, could be TSA, could be Homeland Security. And once again, maybe it's an interrogation scene and they are trying to teach recruits. Maybe they're trying to teach people who've been working there for a while new techniques and new strategies. And once again, you're going to have this entire background. You're going to know exactly what you did, what you didn't do, how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to respond. It's really pretty cool. Sometimes law schools, as well as lawyers, will hire actors to do these role playing or law actors. And you might be on the jury. Maybe the student is getting some practice in a courtroom setting, and you might be on the witness stand. Who knows? Or maybe there's a lawyer who's working on a case, and they want to test out some of their ideas, and they're going to ask for feedback. Did you believe this? Did you think this person was innocent when I talked about this? So here are some different ways of getting that kind of information. And once again, you will find these all throughout the country, even in small markets. Okay, so how to get started locally. Look, there are lots of things that you can be doing, and this is assuming that you've got a great headshot and resume. When I say great resume, I'm not suggesting that it has to be filled with tons of television shows and feature films. Look, when you're getting started, you're not going to have that much. But there are very specific formats that you want to have your resume in. And once again, you can get all this information not only from my book, How to Become a Successful Actor and Model, which you can find on my website, howtoactandmodel.com, but also on my website, I have videos that will teach you how to create a great resume, how to create a great headshot. And those are really, really great videos for you to watch and learn from. So assuming you have the right materials, start trying to do local theater work. Now, just keep in mind, look, great acting is great acting. It's different kind of acting when you are working on a stage and working in front of a camera. So make sure you do understand it's a different form of acting. You're not hitting the back row when you have a camera, 6 inches in front of your face. And so everything is going to be very different. As a great way to get on camera experience and build up your resume and start building up your acting reel, I would try to get some local college student film work. And what you can do is go to your local community college, university, college, and find out who's teaching film classes. Now, you don't need to find out about, the history of film and things like that. You want to find the classes where students have to shoot films as a project for the class. And speak to the instructor. You can bring in a headshot and resume, say you'd be really interested in getting an opportunity to audition. And I know people who've created really good reels just from working with students. And the other thing too is you never know where that student director might wind up or writer might wind up. And there have been lots of situations where people have gone on to do amazing things. They've remembered some of the actors who they shot when they were doing student films, and they continued to work with them. Once again, meetup groups. Maybe you can find some meetup groups for filmmakers and that or maybe film writers. That would be a great way to make contacts. The other thing too is create your own project. That's another option. If you think that you have the skills to write, you've got some ideas, you certainly will know what your acting skills are better than anybody else, and write something that showcases those. A lot of actors get started that way. I also have a great video on how to create your own project on the store page of howtoactandmodel.com. There's also a really, really wonderful organization, Women in Film and Video. Here's a link. You'll find they have offices and chapters around the world, and find the one near you. And you don't have to be a woman to be a part of it. And I don't know whether they all work this way, but the one that I was a part of, you could either become a member, and it's a pretty nominal fee, and then you could attend all their meetings. They bring in guest speakers. They have networking, hours where you can get together with writers, producers, other actors, agents, casting directors. Or you can pay a nominal fee and attend some of their meetings. So anyhow, you can check into that as well. So just to kind of wind things up here, most importantly, make sure you've got the right materials when you're trying to get work on whether it's a local level or in other markets. So create eye-catching headshots, create a resume that people expect to see. If you're trying to get commercial modeling work, then create commercial photos. And don't do what most people do, and they spend a bunch of money, they see a photographer, they ask, what do I do? And you just kind of stand there and pose for the camera. Those aren't the most interesting kinds of shots. You'll read all about that in my book. I also have a video just on that as well on howtoactandmodel.com. Start looking, doing research, find a photographer, find an agent, and begin marketing yourself to casting directors, photographers, and art and creative directors. So anyhow, that's what I wanted to share with you today. And take your time while you're doing this. You don't have to do this overnight. It might take months and months to really follow this path and get started. But let me just tell you, there is a lot of work that you don't know about that is taking place in small markets. So don't dismiss it just because you live in a small area. Also, just wanted to let you know, I do set aside 5 days every month to do private online mentoring with people. And what you can do is just go to my website, and you can see all the links here. and just click on mentoring program. And I'll work with you one-on-one and figure out a strategy, come up with a plan that is best for you. And we'll talk about what your needs are and make sure that we get all that taken care of. So, like I said, I do set aside 5 days every month, and I do this online for these private mentoring sessions. For my book, you can take a look. You can find it on my website. Here's also a link there as well. I can't wait to do my next monthly video. This was a lot of fun. I love sharing this information with you. I'm Aaron Marcus, and I can't wait to talk with you again real soon.